Lou, is it just me or is something off here?
I don't think he's an attorney. I'm going to check
Me
his
too.
resume.
You're way too easy to talk to, man.
Well, like you introed me, I'm not 100% attorney.
I want to see that JD. We want proof.
Hey, I worked really hard, first of all, to get beyond the introversion of my engineering mindset and background. And then I became an attorney, and I've worked really hard to supplement both engineering and law with some business common sense. It took me a long time. I remember I took my first in-house job, and 2 weeks in, I'm like, these guys are going to fire me. Like, I've been practicing law the way attorneys have taught me. I got to figure out how to practice law the way business people need me to practice. Let's go!
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, today we've got a very, very special guest, and listen to this bio. He blends the rigor of an engineer, the precision of an attorney, the perspective of an MBA, and the scrappiness of an entrepreneur. That all came together, and he founded the Fractional Legal Team.
Interesting.
Mr. Holman, welcome to the podcast. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great. It's my pleasure to be here, guys.
We've been looking forward to this all week. Walk us through Fractional Legal Team 101. Why do businesses use it, and how can they use it to scale?
Yeah, for sure. So fractional legal teams, they're an extension of what a lot of people are becoming familiar with, this whole concept of fractional CMOs, fractional CFOs, people that show up in a strategic role in your business, kind of, add that expertise on a part-time basis, if you will, or a full-time basis, but a fractional budget, right? And so I did that role. I did that role as a general counsel at one point, and then as I was transitioning from what we call in-house counsel, being the attorney for a company specifically versus outside, I did that. I transitioned out, and I was doing this fractional general counsel role where it was just me, and I realized there's some downsides to that, right? I'm a one-person guy bringing on multiple clients. They're all scaling up, and I'm like, wait a second, I just became the bottleneck for multiple companies all at once. So, logically, I look back at my background, I've done some strategy stuff, and I'm like, this isn't sustainable, right? How do I make it sustainable? And it just landed on me that these companies, as they grow, they have a full in-house legal team. Somebody does employment, somebody does investments, somebody does whatever it is. My background is patents and trademarks and IP stuff. So, you get people with different expertise, put them all together. There's some massaging. There's a lot of coordination we have to do on our end that we hope doesn't necessarily cause confusion for the clients on their end. We want it to be simple. But yeah, we show up with the full legal team, and we do that on a fractional basis. So you get the right attorney with the right expertise at the right time, and then we can just scale with you. It's better for us. It's better for the clients. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, how come nobody else is doing this? And my answer is, I don't know, but they should. I hope a lot more people do it, because it really is the right way to provide legal services.
So wait a second, let's back up here. So you're telling me I can come to you, and I can come to you for IP and be like, hey man, I need an estate plan too. Do you have somebody on your team that could do that you're outsourcing? Is that the way it's going to work?
So our team does not have estate planning on it specifically, but we can find somebody if you need to. Okay. So that's kind of the hybrid of general counsel. We cover a lot of like the basic business stuff, people fundraising, people doing contracts, working with suppliers, employee problems, inventing new products, launching new platforms, building new brands. We cover the gamut of that. When you get into estate planning, or if you got even further outside, you get into like family issues and criminal, we don't do anything that's not business. Estate planning kind of is one of those crossovers. Tax is one of those crossovers. And so what we do, instead of having that on our team, that's a specialty that we will go and we'll coordinate for you, just as if we were your general counsel full time. We'd say, hey, that's a special thing. We don't need to hire specifically for that. But if you've got a need, we can help coordinate it. We can help manage the bills. We can help keep the costs under control. Things like so it really is a general counsel role with the support of a legal team behind it, and we cover all the bases.
I love that. So how do you one of the problems with attorneys that I find, and I got to be honest with you, is I'm afraid to pick
Which
up.
problem?
I'm afraid to pick up the phone. A 2-minute conversation I'm getting billed half an hour for. So how do you guys bill?
Oh, yeah.
How did you disrupt that model? What did you?
Well, let me say first that is the number one issue I have with attorneys too. I've been in-house counsel, had to hire outside people, and you do when you as soon as you establish a relationship where you hesitate to call the experts to help you, like there's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And as attorneys, we're supposed to be like the most expert communicators in the world, or whatever it is, right? And yet what we've done is we've created these blockages, these obstacles for people communicating with us and for people hiring us. It makes no sense. So our method is to establish a scope, right? We have these kind of levels of service that people need, and you grow, and we customize to different people. But we say, hey, let's set up a monthly retainer. We'll track our hours. We'll track what's going on and make sure that we're on track with the budgets that you're able to provide. And if you start to trend upward, we'll let you know. If you start to trend downward, hopefully that's not the case, but sometimes it is, we'll let you know. And so the idea is remove all the barriers so that we really feel like that legal team down the hall. Pop your head in. Hey, Jeff, I got a question. Trevor, Ross, Danielle, like make it so it's easy to have the questions asked, not an obstacle up front. So we found that not tracking our hours, we track them internally, we run our business rigorously, but not making that the communication kind of fence between us and our clients, that's a huge barrier that we've removed.
Jeff, I would imagine that a business in its infancy has very different legal needs than a business in its adolescence or in its maturity. Give us some examples on how your platform grows with the company.
Yeah. So candidly, we do some one-off stuff that's kind of like other law firms. There are these transactional things. People don't come to us and they say right offhand, "Oh, I just started a business yesterday. Let me pay you $10,000 a month to run my legal." They don't need that, right? They need a contract. They need some onboarding documents for employees. So they usually start off slow with little projects here and there. But at some point, what they do, and most CEOs and teams go through this, they're like, "Man, I've been putting off dealing with that issue, and this other issue just came up, and now I need to find an attorney to help me with this other thing." Like I've been, putting these legal issues into the back closet, and now I'm starting to lose sleep, and I don't know which attorney to hire because maybe I want a general counsel, but then I've got an employment thing, but then I've got fundraising. So as soon as somebody starts saying to themselves, I have this constant flow, maybe even a backlog of some legal issues. They spread across different issues where I think I probably need different attorneys with different expertise. Like that is the flag somebody should say to those, man. And some people do that. They call me and they're like, I was having this issue. And I was like, why isn't there somebody who can deal with this? And then I talked to my friend and they're like, oh, call Jeff Holman. His team does that. And I was like, finally, somebody does that. So that's the issue, when people start to feel like they're just overwhelmed and they got to start clearing stuff off that they haven't been managing well. That's when they'll often call us. And from there, it's a scale up, right? Because you don't need 5 full-time attorneys at that point. You need a piece of one and a piece of another and a little bit bigger piece of another one. And we just kind of flow and mix with you. And, we help manage so that budget is predictable, but the services are flexible.
I could have used you. Oh my God. We will definitely be using you. I promise you that, but I will tell you one story. So I called an attorney that we were using. I'm not going to mention any names here, but I go, hey, blank.
You'll be in the podcast notes.
Hey, blank, what do you know about Safe Notes? You know about Safe Notes? Because he's like, yeah, of course I do. I could do this for you. And I spent on the phone with him 10 minutes and he's like, yeah, I got this. Next thing you know, I got 10 hours worth of research. I'm like, you told me you knew about this stuff. I didn't want to pay you to research it.
You're like, wait a second. I thought this was a standard document
Yes.
that people use. It's a template.
Exactly. Well, I had to research it and go back and forth. And then he's trying to tell me to do a Reg D. And I'm like, you obviously have no idea. But just like most attorneys, you just don't want to say, no, you can't do it. That's what I found.
That's the real problem, right?
Yeah.
And that's that we pull that off the plate. Like it's not even I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been a solo guy operating, and people. I like my specialty is patents, and people are like, oh, can you do this? And once or twice, I'm like, sure, I'll help you with that. And then I get buried and I'm like, why did I do this? This is not strategic, right? Strategic is saying no to the things that aren't my specialty, not saying yes.
Well, that
So we've all been there,
yeah,
but man,
that leads us to
it's a
another
mess.
problem though too. I love dealing with people one-on-one, having relationships with my attorney, but I will tell you this.
Yeah.
Once that bigger client comes around and they don't have the staff, guess what? Your stuff's not getting done. They're working on that bigger project.
Yeah, and there are issues like that. And not to knock anybody out there, like there are a lot of people trying to serve their clients well, but there are a lot of broken business models. The conventional law firm model, it's gatekeeping, it's origination fees, it's rainmaking versus fulfillment, and it's set up it's not set up for the client's benefit. When we move to fractional GCs, there are a lot of people who are really good fractional GCs. The issue is, and it's what I ran into when I started as just a solo fractional GC about 8 years ago, and you start saying, well, I got this. And then you bring another client on, and then you bring another client on, and you find out you just scale up into your own problems, right? The other thing that I found is a lot of fractional GCs, they think, okay, I'm in between jobs. Like I had a full-time job, I'm looking for a full-time job, and I'm just going to pick up a few fractional jobs in the meantime. That's fine, except for the fact that you pretty much know that the day that your client hires you, you're going to be gone in the next 6 to 9 months. And so you're not really there to scale with them. You're just filling in your own gaps, not necessarily scaling with the client. So we see a lot of people who come to us and they're like, I had a GC, they're fractional, they went and took a full-time job. So I hired another person, and then she went and took a full-time job. Like, I don't want somebody who's going to take another full-time job in 6 months. I'm tired of switching attorneys.
Yeah.
And so the team just makes that sustainable.
At what point should like our audience, right, usually ranges somewhere between just starting up, they just broke $1 million, and then they're scaling to 10 million plus, right? At what point should somebody reach out to you? Is it top line revenue? Is it when they're just starting out? When's the right time for them to actually add on a fractional GC?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's different industries have kind of different revenue points, but when you're in the 5 to 10, you're probably starting to see a fair number of ongoing legal issues. Here's the thing though, like we've structured our business so that you can come to us from day one. You don't have to put us on retainer. We can do a project here, a project there, but you're starting to establish that relationship. And that's one thing, whether you hire us or you hire any other attorney, like entrepreneurs need legal advice way earlier than they go find it, right? The problem is all the obstacles we've already talked about. So if you can find somebody who's there, who's been around and is going to be around and can scale with you and can scale from, a specific area of law into broader areas of law, all the better, right? But as early as possible, start getting that strategic advice, even if it's just pay for an hour here, pay for an hour there, do a little road mapping. But I like to think that we're the solution for a lot of people. I don't want to be egotistical about it, but nobody else is doing it. So we really can hit those founders, and we've worked with so many people that are starting from, idea stage. They're like, I had this idea, and because of my patent background, a lot of people come to us first, and they're like, hey, I need a patent. I'm like, great. And when you're ready, you're going to be looking at building a brand and launching a business and working with suppliers in China or Vietnam or Mexico or the US. And these are going to compound. Issues are going to grow when you grow beyond just needing the patent or just validating that there's a market for. Like when you start to grow, we're here. Just know that we've got other team members that are coming to play, and our team's going to become your team, and we'll be there for the long haul.
Lou, is it just me or is something off here?
I don't think he's an attorney. I'm going to check his resume.
Me too. You're way too easy to talk to, man.
Well, like you introed me, I'm not 100% attorney.
I want to see that JD. We want proof.
Hey, I worked really hard, first of all, to get beyond the introversion of my engineering mindset and background. And then I became an attorney, and I've worked really hard to supplement both engineering and law with some business common sense. It took me a long time. I remember I took my first in-house job, and 2 weeks in, I'm like, these guys are going to fire me. Like, I've been practicing law the way attorneys have taught me. I got to figure out how to practice law the way business people need me to practice. So it's been a work in progress.
No,
Well, kudos to you for disrupting that industry. But Jeff, let me ask you, given your varied expertise, what are some of the frequently seen mistakes that you can comment on, and hopefully all our audience listeners can learn and not make those very same mistakes?
Oh man, they're like every mistake in the book. People are going to do it because they're just not like you're trying to save money and you're scared of that. Like you said before, you're scared of the initial 15-minute phone call. Like there are milestones, and I've got a great blog post on this I can share with your audience if you want, but there are milestones in every business, right? And what you should do is you should call an attorney. And I know you don't want to pay their fees, any of that, but everybody should call an attorney and say, hey, here's the business I'm building. Here's when I'm going to start hiring attorneys. If I'm going to do fundraising, if I'm going to, start supplying product from somebody, like think of any major milestone in your business that you would celebrate and be like, man, we just landed our first client. We just locked in our supplier. We just, got our first safe. Like all those things, there's legal around those. And if you plan ahead, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't necessarily have to be more expensive. It might be expensive, but it doesn't have to be more expensive, right? And if you plan ahead, you're going to be able to control that. The problem is the risk in the business that you don't know about, or that you think you know about and you don't manage. That's what kills businesses, right? Because there's two aspects to risk. One is there's the risk that something will happen, and then when something does happen, there's the risk of how severe that consequence will be. And it's so hard to know because so many problems in entrepreneurship and startups. There's some combination, right? Is it going to happen? I don't know. But if it does happen, it's just going to kill our business, right? Or maybe it's really likely to happen, but the impact is probably going to be low. And so just anticipating that without any kind of legal perspective becomes hard unless you've been there. The one wish I had for entrepreneurs was it would be, try to think like a second-time founder. If you're a first-time founder, find that perspective. And that might be going to your friends and saying, hey, you've been down this road. Just give me some pointers, help guide me. Let me tell you what I'm working on. And you tell me what's around the corner, because I've never seen around the corner. Attorneys can do that. Your friends can do that who've been down the road. Your CFO can do that probably because they've seen a lot of companies. Get that network around you. So that doesn't really answer your question, is like, what are the problems? But that's like the solution to what the problems are. If we talk about problems, I can tell you right now, every company you're going to run into, your first big issue is going to be fundraising gone wrong, right? And an investor's mad because they thought something else was going to happen and you didn't do it right. And they might want their money back. We see that there's actual ways for investors to demand their money back, even after you've spent it. They're going to come in, you're going to have employee issues. Usually it's just that first employee or even founder, like, oh, I came on and brought a partner on. We never really talked about what this was going to look like. We didn't talk about how to get divorced down the road, because every company ends at some point. And, there's founder issues, there's team issues. Those are the major ones. And then what's surprising to me, or has been surprising to me in the past, as I've seen companies grow from that 0 to 1 phase into that, okay, we're ready to scale. There's something in the market. It's exciting, right? Your team is seeing success. You're like, man, we nailed the product. Now we just got to scale in our channels. The whole industry somehow sees that, and you start to see these leeches come out of the woodwork. Right? There's these other attorneys who are like, let me find a plaintiff because we're going to sue your company for anything and everything, all these weirdo, regulations that have existed. In fact, what was it? Somebody was saying there's a regulation that Walmart was dealing with that there's 100-year-old law, and somebody found it and said, oh, let's find an employee who works as a cashier and doesn't sit down during the days, because there's a law in like New York State that says that you have to provide seating for your employees, and the cashiers aren't sitting down. So we're going to find somebody. Nobody's been suing on this for 100 years, like literally. And then somebody comes out of the woodwork and says, well, let's sue Walmart. Same thing happens to all these small companies.
It's amazing how the tort bar can find the most innocuous law and convert it into like give it so much bite, right? Like the old fax laws, and then
Yeah.
the calling laws, and then
Yep.
there was the
Well, look,
it never
look,
ends,
just
right?
recently, Texas out. Texas, you cannot send a text message in unless you have specific opt-ins in Texas. This is like last
Yep.
month it came out.
Yeah.
Because you can get sued $2,500 every time a text message goes out.
The problem
What if you
is
forgot to take 3 people out? You sent them 7 text messages. You know, there's going to be some attorney out there that finds it.
Matt,
It
you know what
will.
the problem is? The problem is those laws are good. In theory, they're sound laws, right? Because you want to protect the consumer. But in theory, in an application, the tort bar takes them and you can put small businesses out of business for an innocuous text. All right,
Yeah.
maybe we called someone 2 minutes after hours. Does that mean I get put out of business? There has to be a balancing act there somewhere. And I don't know if it's tort reform, but maybe Jeff has a solution.
Well, we see that whether it's privacy laws, and those are all over the place now. Well, we see a ton of like website ADA issues coming
Yeah.
up because lawyers just like, oh, that button didn't work on your website. Well, I've got this. I've got somebody with an ADA issue, and ADA laws are they're
Can we
necessary.
back
We need
up?
them.
Can you explain to the audience what that is? Because this blew my mind when I heard it. I didn't even know it was a
Oh,
thing. And
yeah.
most people listening probably don't even know what it is.
Yeah, Americans with Disabilities Act in the U.S. Provides a lot of accommodations and protections for people who have some sort of disability. And I think that list is expanding quite rapidly as to what is a disability. What we've seen is we've seen e-commerce websites and other websites who have, let's say, a button that one time it didn't work. They were upgrading their site and the button didn't work for a period of time. They fixed it and it works now. And we get a lawsuit a month later that says, I've got a client out of Michigan or wherever, right? And we're suing under either federal laws or under state ADA laws out of Michigan for a client in California that, you know, and we're suing because they tried to purchase your product and the buttons didn't work and there were no ADA like accessibility alternatives for them. And since they couldn't purchase your product, they were injured. They were injured because they would have bought your product and it's a, you know, we need $10,000. And you're like, what in the world? What you need? So wait, somebody, because they couldn't buy my product, they're like $10,000 damaged. Like that doesn't make sense. And so, but that's the reality of it. People have success. Everybody else sees success, including the tort bar, and they come and say ADA issue. And this legitimately costs companies $10,000 to $20,000 to settle these things, and some attorney's fees, and a lot of wasted time and energy. And it's unfortunate, but it happens regularly.
Jeff, in your business, in my humble understanding, scaling is expensive, right? Because you're hiring lawyers and you need real estate for those lawyers and you need support and you need software, and maybe you need a secretary and you need a legal library. How do you scale successfully given those dynamics?
Well, maybe not surprisingly. I think a lot of people look at attorneys and like, oh, you're an attorney. You're like, you got it made. You're so different from other businesses. No, we're like every other business, right? We scale the same way that you scale your business. Trial and error. We hire people. We find the right people. Sometimes we don't find the right people. So our business has been a lot of trial and error over the last 8 years, getting to the point where we're at. We've got a very solid team though, and we've got some plans for how we scale beyond this. You know, it's a matter of having the right people in the right place at the right time. And there's just the different, I mean, like any business, you know, we have intake issues. We got to get the intake right. Then we got to assign the projects out and make sure people are communicating. We got to track the projects in collaboration with our clients. We got to fulfill the projects or deliver the end result, and we got to report. So, you know, I don't know if there's a more in-depth way to explain that.
You forgot one. You guys also have collection issues that I found out through some of my buddies. And nobody thinks that.
That there are definitely collections issues. We do most of our stuff upfront retainers. And
Okay.
you know, some people give us a hard time about that, but you know, we're really fair with people, and I can't do it another way because I've been taken by good friends,
Yeah.
you know, and it just, people look at attorneys as banks for some reason. And I'm like, I've had this conversation a half a dozen times over the years. I'm like, I'm not a bank. You know, if you want me to be a bank, I'm going to charge like a bank, and then you're not going to like me. We're not going to get along very well. You don't want to use me as your attorney and your bank. But you're right. Collections issues are a thing. I could tell you a whole podcast on that.
Jeff, how have you and your firm used AI to help with research and document preparation?
That's a fantastic question. I would say that we're constantly on the lookout for good AI, but AI, despite all of the hype that you hear about legal tech out there, it's not where it needs to be. In fact, we've had people who've hired us to QA their legal tech startup. They're like, hey, we're drafting patents or we're writing contracts. And they usually come and they pitch me like, you should buy our service. I'm like, how good is your service? They're like, 40%. I'm like, okay, if you'd said anything higher, I would have called you a liar. 40%, that's probably about where it's at. That's not good enough for us. We're not in a model
That's
where
called malpractice.
I, that's the thing, right? They're like, just try it out. I'm like, no, because you got privacy issues, you got security issues. Like, I can't just try it out. I can't just wing it, right? Like that puts me in trouble and potentially my clients who also have to comply with all of their own privacy issues through contractual obligations. Anyway, uh, I'm in AI all day long, but not for the legal side of things for the most part, because the legal AI just isn't there. And that's whether you're talking some of the really big players or some of the startup players. Now, I want it to be, and I think it will be, but the difference between our business and some of the businesses that are really adopting AI is we don't have the luxury, because of our size and the way we practice, to bring on and train new associates. And a lot of people are using AI to replace new associates. I think that'll cause its own issues in kind of the growth of their business models over time. Our business model, we just don't do that though. So we can't justify taking a a new attorney that we don't even have and saying let's plug AI in instead of them.
Jeff, you bump into a charming young boy on the street. He's 10 years old. He's watching his TikTok on his iPhone. And you say, young man, what do you want to do when you grow up? How do you motivate that young person to go to law school?
To go to law school?
Yeah.
Oh, you just given me a challenging question, because I will say, I'm going to be really blunt here. I got a lot of friends in the industry. I'll bet you 9, maybe 8 out of every 10 do not like being attorneys. And that's just straight up. They haven't enjoyed it. Now they've been making a lot of money, working
But
a lot of hours, and they're
you
fine,
enjoy
but
it. You
I
enjoy it.
like it.
What's the advice that you're going to give to that 10-year-old? What are the bright lights in your industry that we've lost sight of in the last generation? Because I come from a generation where become a CPA, become a lawyer, become an accountant, become an architect, right?
Yep.
Now there's a generation that says become an NBA player, become a software developer,
Yeah.
become a gamer, right?
Yep.
We're forgetting the once proud trades. So how do we go back to that?
So, anecdotally, there's some history around this where General Counsel, when it first came into play 150 years ago, whenever it was, they were really the business partners to the business owners, right? At some point, and I won't go through all the detail, that all of the regulatory issues in the federal government started, and universities started employing larger and larger law firms, and there became this sensation of weaponizing law in business, right? And that goes hand in hand with weaponizing federal regulations to on the tort bar. So there's all this stuff where law has become essentially the what is it, the vehicle for impeding business, not enabling business. So if I'm talking to the 10-year-old, or if I'm talking to one of my own kids, I got 15 to 26, and none of them have wanted to be an attorney yet, although some of them would be really good at it. If I'm talking to them, I would say you got to go into this and you got to be really specific about the type of way you want to practice. You can go kill yourself in a big law firm and work for them for 3 or 4 years, burn out, and then decide I'm done with the law. A lot of people do that. Or you can go, you can go into family law, or one of these areas where you can make a huge impact. That doesn't really fit my personality, but the impact is there to be made if it's the right fit for somebody. Mine, I love business. I love working with, talking with, walking hand in hand with these business owners and saying, what are you working on? How are you getting there? How can you do it better? Is it sustainable? Is it profitable? And so for me, that's just energizing. So if this 10-year-old on the street is business minded, I'd be like, there is an opportunity And it's going to get bigger and bigger with AI. When it does get to a point where you can leverage it, there's an opportunity to become like a strategic partner to your clients, not just this person that they have to call when they don't want to, but they don't have any other choice. Like there's an opportunity to be a partner. If you can find a way to practice where you're partnering up with people you like, I mean, why wouldn't you do it? It's something I've loved, and it's got its challenges being a business owner in general, but being able to practice like this is the only way I would do it.
For those listening, in about 11 to 12 years, there's going to be a huge uptick in law school applications because of Mr. Holman. Thanks, pal.
Jeff, thank you so much for being here. We want to be respectful of your time. Why don't you tell the audience where they could find you and get in touch with you and call him and ask him some questions?
Yeah, for sure. I love questions. In fact, I do a 30-minute free strategy call for potential clients. So people can call up, they can tell me what problems they're dealing with, the messes they've made that they haven't cleaned up yet. And so people just go to my website, intellectualstrategies.com, and you can get a hold of me there. Yep, right there. There's buttons all over. On the left side, on the top corner, scroll down, you'll find more buttons. It's book a call. I think we've been consistent. All the gold buttons on that site take you to be able to book a strategy call with us. So I love it. I set aside 30 minutes and I have a conversation with people because I just want to hear what kind of cool things cool people are working on. And a lot of times there's a way for us to fit into there. It's just a matter of finding the right timing and the right budget for it so that we can, plug in the right people with the right expertise.
Jeff, thank you so much. I got one question before I let you run. Do you enjoy Salt Lake more in the summer or the winter?
Well, you've asked me in my favorite season of the year, which is fall, so I'm not sure if I know which one. I love mountain biking in the summer. I love
He answered like a
snowboarding in the
lawyer.
winter. Well, I didn't say the proverbial "it depends." I just gave you both answers.
It depends. What am I doing? Jeff, thank you so much. That was awesome. Everybody, that's a wrap at the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Let's go!